Hi everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Francesco and you probably saw other videos in another language. So my videos, the purpose of my videos is to actually be informative, and I want to share what I know about the United States, jobs, languages, and all of that. So you don't know probably that I am originally from Italy. So I was born and raised in Genoa, Italy, and I have been living in the United States for 10 years. So it's been a long time. What is this video about? This video is about working as a flight attendant. So I actually graduated from college 3 times. I got my bachelor's, I got my master's, and I also got my doctorate. And so you're probably wondering, like, if you have a doctorate, why do you want to work as a flight attendant? That's a very good question. I do not exclude anything, honestly. I think that working as a flight attendant is very fun. I flew with a lot of different companies. There's one in particular that I like way more than others, and I actually applied for that specific company, and this is what I'm talking about today. So I actually signed an NDA, so I am not allowed to tell you what company I applied for, but I would still love to share my experience with you guys, and hopefully share some very good recommendations. And if you're planning on applying, then you could use these tips. So let's start with number 1. Okay, tip number 1, be honest. This is one of the most important things that I absolutely recommend. Like I said, I cannot tell you what company I had the interview with, but I can tell you that it was a major airline in the United States, and I love that airline, and they're very good. They are very professional. I love flying with them. My experience has always been very, very, very good. And when I applied, simply because I saw a notification on my phone that just popped up, saying, hey, we have this position available, we are hiring if you're interested. And in that moment, I didn't really like my job. I was working for a university. I didn't like it that much. So I was like, sure, yeah, I mean, why not, never close doors. So that's kind of like my motto. Always, be open to whatever is offered to you, and the worst thing that could happen is that you say no, or that your employer says no, and that's it, and you move on to the next thing. So when I say be honest, I say this because the process that I had to go through was actually pretty long. There was not just one interview. I had to go through well, first of all, I had to apply with just very basic information, like my name, last name, the reason why I applied, and I tried to be very honest. Like I said, I don't want to work for you because I want to travel the world. Never say I want to travel the world, because you don't travel the world. You literally stay a few hours in one place and then you're back on the plane and you're flying back to the United States. So or whatever you are. So I don't recommend saying this. The reason why I try to be as honest as possible, and I said that I want to work for that company because I really believe in their ethics, I really believe in their professionalism. It's a company that I've always admired for a long time, and that's all I said. And after, I believe, a week or 10 days, probably, I received another notification basically saying that they wanted to know more about me. So I got this by email, and I replied. They give you a link, and you have to answer more questions. So all of these are just written responses. After this second step, where they ask me again pretty basic questions about my lifestyle and what I like to do, what I don't like to do, and again, be as honest as possible. Obviously, if you believe that there's something that you consider more like inclined to what a flight attendant would do or what an airline would like to hear, then go ahead and write that. But don't lie. I do not recommend that, because you will get at some point, you will have the final interview, and if it doesn't reflect what you said, that might not be very good and you might not get the job. So like I said, I try to be as honest as possible. I already had a job, which in my opinion really helps, because like I had my stability already, I had my salary, I had my paycheck at the end of the month. So like I was not like in a desperate mode where I'm like, I must have this job. So it was, to me, it was very smooth and very easy process. But the third step, to me, that was very important, because you are in front of your camera, exactly the same thing that I'm doing right now. Like they ask you to use your phone to record yourself, and they ask you a series of questions. What is the most interesting part is that you don't know what questions they're gonna ask you. So the questions could be absolutely different. Like they are, you don't know what they could ask. So if I were you, my first recommendation is, again, be honest, but also be prepared to what you might consider a possible question. So when it comes to flight attendant, for example, a question might be, have you ever flown abroad? Or have you ever had a situation where you needed to solve a problem, or in a very, like a stressed environment, like these kind of questions. So be prepared, because they really give you no time, and they do that on purpose because they want to see, like how you react right away as soon as they ask you the question. So it was fun, but it was also a little stressful, because, like I was like, am I gonna say the wrong thing? And as of today, I don't know if I said the wrong thing, but I mean, at the end of the day, I was offered the job, so that means that I did something good. So that is my first tip. Like I said, be honest, absolutely. Tip number 2, when you apply, make sure that you use the right words. And when I say this is because, especially like I said earlier about the first step and the second step, I had to go through a process of 4 steps. I'm not saying that all major airlines follow this process. The airline I applied for, that's what they had, so that's what I did. But the first 2 were written answers. So especially the second one, where like they kind of wanted to know my opinion about certain things, I made sure that I said the right things. So when I say this is, make sure that whatever you say could be reflected on what a flight attendant would do. Okay, so first of all, I am an international, very international person. I grew up in Europe. I visited South America quite often, because my mother is actually South American, my father is Italian. So, I flew a lot from an early age, and that really allowed me to like see a lot of different cultures, a lot of different countries. Growing up in Europe, it's also very easy to visit other major cities. I when I was 18, I had already visited Paris, Madrid. I went to Germany, I went to Austria. I went to England. So, I saw a lot, and I was just a teenager. So now that I'm an adult, you can imagine I obviously visited even more countries. So, and to me, that was a very key factor that I wanted to include in my interview. So I obviously mentioned how working as a flight attendant is not gonna be that big of a deal for me, because when it comes to like traveling, because I've been traveling my whole life, and that is one thing that if that is your case, absolutely you should totally include that. And if that is not your case, you can say, I am applying for this job because I am very inclined to visit new countries, I'm very open to new cultures. And the other thing that I absolutely recommend saying, you want to work with people. You working as a flight attendant means that you will be flying for many hours with other people. Are you going to get along with your colleagues? Are you going to like your colleagues? Are you going to dislike your colleagues? Are you able to, solve a problem with your colleagues? That is another very important thing to do. Like what I noticed, for example, during my interview, and I'm very I'm a very sociable person. I have the very bubbly personality. So I like to smile. I like to socialize. That's just my personality. But I guarantee that during the final interview, when I was with all of the other candidates, there were some people that were not that friendly, and they did not get the job. So make sure that you show that to the camera, and especially when you are in person, hopefully during the final interview, that you like to be around people, that you like to work with people, and that you like to serve other people. And that is another thing that I mentioned. I grew up in a very humble household, and so I grew up sharing everything with my family. Like with my brothers, we didn't have much, so it was all about sharing. It was all about living with other people. It was all about just being around other people. So to me, that is something very important, and because I grew up with it, that's something that I really like doing. And that is another thing that you should totally mention. Finally, another thing that you should say on top of, using the right words and being honest, also make sure that you are as open as possible to whatever you may encounter. And I'm not saying this just during the interview, but remember that you will be flying abroad, you will be flying to other cities, and you will be working with passengers with so many different backgrounds. You don't know who's gonna be on your plane. It could be your neighbor that is from Minnesota, or it could be a disabled Asian person that doesn't speak English. You really don't know who is going to be on your plane. So make sure that you're always open. Being open is so important, and this is exactly what they're looking for. They're looking for someone that is not going to be on the plane and doesn't know what to do because that's something that they never faced, or no, you have to be always willing to help others and ready to help others. That is so important. So also be confident. Be confident in the things that you say, the way you say things, and the way you do things. That is very important. And tip number 3. This time I want to talk about the final interview. So hopefully you passed the first 3 steps, and now you got an email saying, hey, we want to see you in person, which is exactly what happened to me. I got an email and they told me, hey, we want to see you in person, and we want you to come to this major city. It's a hub city. I cannot mention what city, otherwise you would know what company this is. But that's the greatest thing is that they pay for your flight ticket to fly to that city. So you just tell them your availability, where you are. At that time, I was in Southwest Florida. I was living in Southwest Florida, so they flew me. It was a direct flight from my city to the destination, and they pay for that, so you don't have to pay anything. That's pretty nice. But the interview starts very early, so my recommendation is to get there a day before, and everyone does. Honestly, everyone gets there a day before. As soon as you do that, make sure that you book the hotel right away. I know that it sounds obvious. For some people, it isn't that obvious. There are gonna be a lot of people that are gonna be there at the same time with you. So make sure as soon as you give them the dates, if you can do a free cancellation reservation, do that. But make sure that you book that hotel right away, because otherwise there's not gonna be availability. And if you cannot drive, you will have to, Uber or Lyft or whatever. So it's just more difficult. It gets more complicated. So like be very proactive when it comes to these things. Give them the dates and book the hotel right away, so you can find a pretty inexpensive option. So this is what happened to me during the interview. There were a lot of people, and you will meet some of them in the hotel, honestly. Some people, that actually surprised me, like they already know each other because they might be in the same city or they applied multiple times. So, and that happens, that absolutely happens. There are people that apply like 3 or 4 times, like whenever they have an opening, they apply. That was my first time, so like I was clueless, I had no idea. So I got there and I saw other people, and like I said, like I'm very personable, so like I started talking to them. So I was like, hey, are you guys here for the interview? And like where you're from or whatever. And so yeah, so like you can start talking. And actually, if you meet someone that already went through the interview and that it is not their first time, talk to them. And so, like you can ask, like what you're supposed to do, what you're not supposed to do. And honestly, like number one, I'm not allowed to give you the details of what I did during the interview, but like I feel like that it always changes, like you're not always doing the same thing. And sometimes it's just better to not know what is gonna happen. So that way you can be more natural, like a little more yourself. And I think that's very important because all the people that are gonna be there, and they're actually, they're called trainers, but all these trainers used to be flight attendants. So they know what it means to fly. And many of them do both things, like they're both trainers and also flight attendants. So they really want to know, you might be flying with them, you might be working with them. So they kind of want to know who you really are, and I think that's very important. So the interview starts very, very early. I believe my interview started at 8 or maybe 7:30. There were a lot of people, and so there is a shuttle that picks you up and takes everyone to the location. And then there's like a mingle time at the very beginning. So like there are all these people, they give you a little badge with like the visitor or whatever. There's your name on it, and you can start talking to people. Dress up. Remember, and they will give you the instructions, but remember that you're basically, they want to see you. They want to see your outfit as if you were going to fly in the next 5 minutes, so you want to be like super dressed up. So I had like a suit and tie. You want to make sure that your hair looks good. Like if you're a woman or a man and you want to wear makeup, but make sure that you look very put together. Like that is very, very important. And if you have anything that really stands out, like you have like a particular jacket that you think like that is a nice color that you want to wear, or like a a ring or a watch that you want to wear that you think it like stands out, do it. That's, in my opinion, that's a good idea. So during the interview, after the beginning, the phase, they show you a presentation. So there is someone that presents the company. There are all the flight attendants around you. It's actually a very nice moment because you can tell that these people are really working there because they really love doing what they're doing. And to me, that was also another reason why I really wanted to apply, because they were so honest about all the things they were saying, and I just loved it. I absolutely loved it. Like I would have loved to work for a company like that. I didn't for other reasons, but that was a very good start that I really liked. So there is this first presentation, and then they divide you in different groups, and then each group has to do certain things. So like number one, if you're not tall enough, then you're not gonna be able to reach like certain heights, and that is something that you have to do. I know that it sounds kind of like stupid, but it isn't. So if you're not tall enough, that is not good. So you want to be tall enough. Also, make sure that if you have tattoos, they must be either covered, or if they're too big, actually you cannot even apply, because if they can be shown like in your arms or your legs, they must be like kind of like in hidden parts of your bodies, otherwise you cannot apply for the job, and that's kind of like pretty standard for most airlines. Yeah, so like they divide you in different groups, and each group has to do something different, but in the end every group does the same thing. So let's say that you have, like step A, B, C, D. You start with C, then you move on to D, then you go to B, and then you go to A. So, like they move you around. And you have to do different things. They ask you to do things that a flight attendant would do. So like they ask you questions, for example, about your hobbies and what do you like to do during your free time. They ask you questions about your family, if you have a family, your personal life. And it's not like, the reason why they do this is because they want to make sure that you are the right candidate for that position. So obviously if you say, I am a single mom or a single dad and I have 3 children and I don't have anyone who can take care of them, then you're probably not going to be selected. At the time I was single, I didn't have any, ties to anything or anyone. And the reason why that is very important is because they have different locations where you're going to be based, and you have to be willing to accept any one of them. So if they say, hey, you're going to be based in Los Angeles, you have to go to Los Angeles. If they tell you you're going to go to New York, you have to go to New York. If they say Chicago, you have to go to Chicago. So like there's no specific location that you can choose. You have to be open, and that's why I'm saying, like, always be open and say yes to everything. Like, we're gonna send you to Honolulu, Hawaii, yes. We're gonna send you to Des Moines, Iowa, yes. Like, always say yes to everything. They want to see that flexibility. Remember that that is one of the key factors for a flight attendant, is to be flexible always. So during these 4 different steps, it was 4 for them. I don't know if they changed that. During these phases, we had to do different things. So like there were like little activities that we had to do. Like I said, whatever a flight attendant would do, think about these things. They cannot be specific. So I had to, work with other candidates, and then also I had an interview with one of the trainers, and during the interview that's when they asked me questions about my personal life, and like I said, I was very honest. I said the reason why I want to work there, and also another thing, and if you are like me, they're gonna love hearing this, being diverse. Diversity is such like a great thing for major airlines, because you will be working, not just flying with passengers that have different backgrounds, but you will be working with passengers, with colleagues that have very different backgrounds. Like me, for example, like if you were on the flight with me, you have this non-American person, a person of color, like that grew up between Italy and Ecuador, and you have to be willing, and be comfortable to work with someone like me. And trust me, there are a lot of people that are not comfortable being around me because of the different culture, because I speak with an accent, because, I don't know, like I'm a person of color. So you have to be open again. And I know that I'm sounding like a broken record and I keep repeating the same thing over and over, but it's really important that you keep these things in mind, because they really wanna work with the good flight attendants, the best flight attendants they can find. So during this interview, for example, I had applied for, it's called a language language destination flight attendant or something like that. I'm sorry, I cannot remember exactly the name, but basically I wanted to fly to Italy, so I would have been on flights specifically that fly to Italy because I speak Italian. So I had to take a language test, and if you are one of them, so there were a lot of people that wanted to do that for Spanish, for example, you can, if they have the opening, you can do that, and you have to take a test afterwards. So after the interview, you have to take a test. They send you a link, and there's a test to take with a person. So you will be on video with another person, and they ask you questions in Italian and English, or in your foreign language and then English, and you have to switch between the two languages. It's pretty easy. It's not that difficult. But if that is the case, please study very basic, flight vocabulary, because you will be using that. Like, you want to know how to say, wings and airplane and, crew and departure, arrival, like these kind of things. Like, that's very important. During, like I said, during this interview that I had with the trainer, I specifically mentioned how I wanted to work in a more diverse environment, because I am a diverse person, and I like the idea of flying with people that have very different backgrounds, that are from different countries, and I feel very comfortable with that. So they love that. They loved hearing that. So if you're watching this video and you live in America, most likely you are an American citizen and you have not been exposed to other cultures, but you can say, be honest and say, this is something that I want to do. I want to learn more about my colleagues, and I want to work in a more diverse environment. Like that, the fact that you are American and you're white doesn't prevent you from working with other colleagues that have a more diverse background. So they want to see that openness for sure. Like they absolutely want to see that. Finally, let's say that you passed and you find that out the very same day. So at this interview lasts for like 4 hours, 3-4 hours. All these different steps, like I said, and at the end, they will tell you if you passed or not. So let's say that we started at 7:30, 8, we finished around 11:30, 12. And the reason why you finished that time, because they have another round of candidates in the afternoon. So I was in the morning, but it could have been in the afternoon also. I prefer the morning because I just want to get that done. Like I don't want to spend the whole morning thinking about the interview. So I actually, that worked perfectly for me. And at the end, so around 11:30 or 12, they gather all the candidates in a big room and they called you. They called your number, so you have a number, your badge has a number. They call your number and you want to be the last one to be called. Because if you are the last one, that means that you have been selected. So it's actually a very fun way. I had never seen it before. So they started calling all these numbers and they would not call me. And I was like, dang, I haven't been selected. Okay, whatever. But then once the last group left, I think there were 12 people out of 100, I believe. There were 12. It was 12 of us. And we were the ones selected. So that was a very nice moment. There were a lot of people crying, and the trainers had tissues ready to go. So I assume that is something that happens quite often. It was a very nice moment. They congratulate you and they put you in a room where you have to go through a drug test right away. So make sure that you're clean. I am clean. I don't do any type of drugs of any kind. So you have a drug test right away, and you have to sign certain documents. And this is it's called a conditional offer. So that doesn't mean that once you sign, that doesn't mean necessarily that you will be working for them for sure 100%. Because you have a training to go through afterwards. So after several months, actually, you have to go through a training. So it's just a conditional offer. Then there is a background check, so you have to pass that one as well. So there are other steps. So like the fact that they say, hey, we're offering you the job, that doesn't mean that the day after you should call your employer and be like, hey, I quit. Like, don't do that, because you have to wait a little longer. But yeah, so they ask you to sign a few documents, saying that you are accepting that conditional offer. There is a drug test, and then afterwards there is a background check. What is the training? So the training is actually very long, and to me that was that thing where I was like, it's not gonna happen. It's paid very little, very, very little, and the training is very long. It's like a month long, if not more. So, and I was like, no, like I cannot do this. Like I am not in a position where I can make, like, I don't even know, like $1,500 in a month. Like, no, absolutely not. You have to relocate wherever the base for the training is. So that was very far from where I was living. I could not commute. Like, I had to move. I had to live there. The good thing is that the training is obviously paid very little, but it's paid. At the time, it was $7.25. So it was like very little. At least for me, that was very little. And it's several days from Monday through Friday. You have to relocate. They give you a place where you can live, so like you don't have to look for your own place. And after the training, that's when you can start working. So, final part. The final part is about how much money are you gonna make? And that really varies. I know this is not the answer that you want to hear. I wish I could say something different, but I can't. So consider that a flight attendant makes, the first year makes around $30 an hour, but that really depends on how many hours you want to work. So you can work as many hours as you want, basically. The only thing is that you must work a minimum number of days. So that's something that you want to keep in mind. It's not that, oh, I'm just gonna work like 5 days a week. No, like especially at the beginning, you're still like in this like a probation period. So you need to work at least 17/20 days a month, okay? So you have several days off, but especially during the first, I believe, 3 months, you want to work all those days. And my recommendation, and also another flight attendant would tell you the same thing, work as many hours as you can and show that you are like always available, always on time, always ready to go. Like very, very important. After the probation time, that's when you can actually start working and you're good to go. Like that's when you are like a real full-time flight attendant. And the good thing about working specifically for this company, I honestly don't know about other airlines, is that every year you will be making more money. So like if the first year you're making $30, after 12 years, you're almost making double. At least this is the pay back in 2019. Back then, that's how much money you would make. So, if your goal is to have that job for a long time, I 100% recommend stick with the same company. And trust me, after 12 years, your salary is not gonna go up. Like it stays at like that. I believe it's $57, $58 an hour. But again, like it really depends on how many hours you want to work. So the more hours you work, the higher your salary is. And like I said, I was going to be this language destination flight attendant or whatever it's called. And they pay you more. So if you actually fly abroad, of course, the flight is longer. And if you speak another language, number one, you have to apply for it. And number two, they pay you more. And I believe it's, at the time, it was $2.25 extra an hour. So, like if the first year your colleague is making 30, you're making 32. And, it adds up pretty quickly. So that's something that you may want to consider if you speak another language. That's something that you shouldn't exclude. So, final part is about why I didn't accept the job. So there are several reasons why I did not accept the job. And this is not about the company. I still love the airline. I still fly with them all the time. I fly a lot and I'm always flying with them. So I decided to not accept because of, number one, the training. And to me, making that little for like 45 days or whatever that was not gonna happen. And also, in my case, being paid $30 an hour was actually less than what I was making working as a professor in a university. And I would have not had the same flexibility that I have with working in university. So that's the other thing that you want to keep in mind. After the first year, you have 2 weeks paid of vacation. So, but it's only 2 weeks, and then you have a total of 45 hours of personal time that you can just use for yourself, and that is also paid, but all of this is after 1 year. And I just I calculated how much money I would be making, and it was just like not much, and I would have to wait many years before starting to make a lot. And this is not, like, it was just not acceptable for me. So that is the reason why I said no. And the other reason why I said no is because COVID happened and they put everything on hold. So when they decided that they would start the training again, that was almost a year after, if not more. And at that time, I had already found another job that paid pretty well. So I was like, I'm not gonna quit. Like, I'm just gonna stick with this and I'm just gonna resign. So you simply need to send an email. At least in my case, I sent an email and they said, we completely understand if you cannot accept it anymore because it's been, like a year or longer than that. So if you cannot accept it anymore, that's fine. So I sent an email saying that I was, resigning, that I was, dropping my application, and they said, okay, no worries, and that was the end of it. But so that's my story and that's my experience. I probably missed a million things, but of course I cannot make like a 1 hour long video. So if you have any questions, drop a comment below and I will do my best to be as specific as possible, but also protecting the company and not mentioning too much stuff. And finally, honestly, the last thing that I want to say is have fun during the interview. Be honest, be yourself, and have a very open mind. Like, honestly, to me, like that was probably the reason why I got the job. So good luck to you if you are about to apply for the job. And like I said, if you have any questions, just let me know. Bye.